Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to follow the money. We're treating a marketing data report like a crime scene to figure out where ad budgets are secretly disappearing. And it turns out, the clues are hiding in plain sight.
So let's kick things off with a question that honestly should keep every marketer up at night. When you spend $1 on advertising, are you sure it's reaching a real person? Or is a big chunk of it just vanishing?
All right, so our investigation? It kicks off with a deep dive into one customer's website traffic. And like any good mystery, it all starts with a single number. A number that might seem kind of small at first, but trust me, it has a massive impact.
And that number is 11%. Think about that. For this particular customer, a full 11% of their entire website traffic was flagged as invalid traffic, or IVT. We're talking bots, fake clicks, all sorts of non-human stuff that they were paying good money to attract.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. 11%? That doesn't sound that bad, right? I mean, especially when you hear that the industry benchmark for this stuff is a staggering 21.3%. So, yeah, on paper, this company was actually doing better than average.
But here's the thing. Better than average is not the same as good. Not even close. An 11% loss is still a huge leak in the budget. The goal isn't just to be slightly better than a broken industry average. It's to stop the bleeding and make every single dollar count.
Okay, so if we're treating this like an investigation, where do we even start looking for the bad guys? Well, you line up the usual suspects, right? And in this case, that means the different traffic channels bringing visitors, both real and fake, to their site.
And this is where the plot really thickens. The data showed this dramatic difference. Traffic from SEO? Squeaky clean, just 4% invalid. Awesome. But direct traffic? People typing the URL right in or from sources you can't track? Whoa, it was completely off the charts with a 42% invalid rate. This is often where the more sophisticated bots love to hide, because their traffic isn't tied to a specific ad network, which makes them way harder to trace.
And that right there, that's our first big break in the case. It's such a clear reminder that, nope, not all traffic is created equal. The very first step to fixing this is knowing exactly where to point your magnifying glass.
But the rabbit hole goes deeper. It's not just about which channels are dirty, it's about specific culprits. We found these repeat offenders who just kept coming back again and again to drain the budget. Just look at these numbers. Over a pretty short 19-day period, this tiny group, just 662 bot IPs, they were responsible for over 5,000 fake sessions. And the really scary part? 35% of them weren't just hitting one ad channel. They were systematically clicking on ads from Criteo, Facebook, Microsoft, you name it.
So, following that trail of breadcrumbs led us somewhere really interesting. A specific kind of ad campaign called Google Performance Max, or PMax for short. It's a really powerful tool, but that power can also open the door to a higher level of risk.
You see, PMax is kind of the all-in campaign. It runs ads everywhere, display, YouTube, Gmail, the whole shebang. And because it casts such a wide net, it's just more exposed. In this case, it had a 7% IVT rate, which was definitely higher than their standard search campaigns. It's a classic trade-off between reach and risk. But then we found it. This right here, this is the smoking gun, the absolute biggest clue in the whole investigation. When we traced where all this junk traffic was coming from, get this, an unbelievable 52% of it came from just 2 data centers. The problem wasn't scattered all over the place, it was highly concentrated.
And this concentration, it wasn't just technical. Our investigation also pinpointed a geographic hotspot. The digital fingerprints, they led us straight to a very specific part of the world.
Okay, brace yourself for this one. A full 70%, 70 of the total invalid traffic, once we filtered out the known good bots, was traced back to one single country, Germany. This was not some random global attack. It was highly targeted. So you have to ask, why Germany? Was it just random? No way. This is actually the really clever, kind of sneaky part of the whole thing. The customer? They're German. So the attackers were originating their traffic from Germany on purpose, trying to blend in with all the real local customers. It makes them so much harder to spot.
Now, Germany was definitely the main hub, but the trail didn't go completely cold there. Another 25% of this invalid traffic was clustered in just 3 other countries: Finland, the US, and Ireland. So now we basically have a map of the crime scene.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got the channels, the repeat offenders, the shady data centers, and the geographic hotspots. We've pretty much unmasked all the culprits. So the big question now is, what do you do about it? How do you actually build a defense?
Well, all those clues we uncovered, they lead us to a really clear 4-step action plan. Step 1, you start moving your budget away from those high-risk channels. Step 2, you go in and proactively block the IP addresses from those 2 sketchy data centers. 3, you tighten up your geographic targeting. And finally, and this is so important, you have to keep monitoring and adapting because you know these guys are going to try to find a new way in.
And look, let's be real for a second. The goal here isn't to get invalid traffic down to absolute zero. That's probably impossible. The real goal, the win, is to minimize its impact. It's about building a strong defense that protects your budget so you can make sure you're talking to real people.
You know, this whole deep dive really leaves us with one last thought. By following all these clues, this customer found the 80-20 of their problem. You know, the small handful of sources that were causing almost all the damage. So the real question for you is, what's hiding in your data?